Thank you, everybody, for coming on a Thursday afternoon. Hope your day is going well. Second day, almost the end, right? Welcome to the session on preventing fraud and abuse, securing the new agent economy. So today, we're going to talk primarily about fraud and abuse. My name is Zhen. I'm the product lead for what you probably have heard as reCAPTCHA. We also have Chris, who's going to come on a little bit later to show you some of the key announcements and demos and what we're kind of the new capabilities that we have to show you. And then we also have a great customer that's going to come on in just a little bit, Ramesh from Best Buy, who's going to talk a little bit about their journey of how they have adopted our solution for preventing fraud and abuse. So exciting time. Hopefully we will get a good set of kind of just presentation, and also obviously we'll leave a little bit of time for Q&A at the end. So first we're going to go through a little bit about what we call fraud defense. This is an evolution of what you know as reCAPTCHA. We'll go through what the new capabilities are and whatnot, and then Chris will come on and talk a little bit about how the new capabilities that we have in terms of preventing fraud, and more specifically in the agent economy, the agentic kind of activities that we're seeing and how we prevent that. And then Ramesh will come on and talk a little bit about how they're, the voice of the customer in terms of their adoption journey, how they're leveraging reCAPTCHA for that. So first of all, how many of you do not know reCAPTCHA? I expect no hands. So as you all know, reCAPTCHA has been fighting fraud for the past 20 years. We currently support and protect over 14 million domains. We support over 50% of the Fortune 100 customers. So many of the sites that you visit as a consumer, many of the sites that you're probably protecting are using reCAPTCHA today. Right? We handle over a billion, manage and protect over a billion users. We have hundreds of billions in interactions on a regular basis. So all of that really kind of gives us the visibility and the intelligence that we have today. Right? We support, from a platform perspective, your web applications, your mobile applications, IoT devices like your set-top boxes. The solutions that we provide prevent a full range and full spectrum of different types of attacks, from bot attacks, scraping, to account takeovers, to SMS fraud, to essentially transaction that you potentially are using credit cards for. So reCAPTCHA over the past few years has really kind of grown in terms of capabilities of what we do. And then finally, the support that we have from Google, right, is what gives us that broad range of fraud intelligence so that we can leverage that to help protect your websites. And obviously, it's very much integrated into GCP so that you can easily kind of spin up applications on GCP and start protecting that. Now, what we have been observing over the past couple of years is really kind of the transition of the type of fraud and abuse that we are seeing in the industry. Over the past 5-10 years, we obviously have seen what we consider to be an industrialization of fraud, right? You have CAPTCHA farms, you have device farms, you have sophisticated scraping networks, you have botnets that are really kind of looking at how they can bypass reCAPTCHA and scrape websites and attack websites and whatnot, and take over accounts, right? We're seeing a ton of that. But what we're seeing over the past couple of years is really a transition from purely just a industrialization of fraud to really AI-driven fraud, right? AI-driven fraud in the sense that, there's two vectors here that we're really talking about. One is that existing attacks are becoming easier because of AI, right? They're becoming faster, they're becoming easier to execute, and they're becoming easier to leverage, attackers are leveraging AI to help attack the websites. That's one vector. The second are new type of fraud and abuse that we're seeing in the industry, right? Synthetic identities. Previously, you can obviously create it through automation, but AI is actually making it much easier and much more sophisticated to create synthetic identity. They can mimic human users much better compared to what an automation script can do, right? So this is the new type of attacks that you're seeing. Agent takeover. As agents become more and more prevalent in your day-to-day usage, prompt injection and some of these attacks will allow attackers to take over an agent and ask the agent to do things potentially that it isn't designed to do. So we're definitely seeing this transition from pure automation type of attack to AI-driven attacks, right? So you want to be able to kind of block most of those things. Now, you as a customer are also asking us to do better. Traditionally, you have two choices. You can block more of the attacks, but blocking more attacks means that potentially creating more frictions for your users. When you create more frictions for your users, it means potentially you're blocking some of the legitimate business that's coming to your site. That's one option on the left. On the right, what you're seeing is that you have the choice of blocking less of the fraud and abuse that's coming to your site. But if you block less, that means that you see more of those type of attacks that come through reCAPTCHA and attack your website. And potentially the business impact there is that you have more fraud and you will have more abuse, right? You have this dichotomy of kind of block more and block less. And what our customers, you, are asking us to do is that we need to enable the business and make it smoother for the users to come in, but at the same time, block most of these attacks. So this intelligent, unified trust layer that we're starting to build, right, to be able to distinguish automation, distinguish the rogue agents from the real helpful agents, and be able to allow trusted users to come through without creating friction for them. And that's really one of the most important things that we're working on and enhancing our platform to build on. With these things, today, what we're announcing is the new brand for reCAPTCHA, Google Cloud Fraud Defense. This is the new brand because, one, reCAPTCHA has really kind of grown over the years from a capability perspective, and we'll take a look at it in just a second. We have evolved in terms of kind of the type of attacks that we can protect against, right? From originally when reCAPTCHA was built for bot defense to now handling account takeovers to handling transaction defense, right? These are new capabilities and evolving threats that we're protecting. And now we're also obviously seeing the AI type of attacks. So continue to evolve the platform to protect all these type of threats. Two, reCAPTCHA has evolved in terms of the overall journey. Most people look at, when we think about reCAPTCHA, they think about, hey, this is a bot defense solution. But in reality, we look at, like I said, right, from the point that a user lands on a website to the point that they go on to registering with their website, to the login, to the transactions that you see. This overall journey, we're really kind of providing capabilities to protect all of that, right? And lastly, one of the things that you'll see later is how we can accelerate customer and how we can accelerate business growth by providing less friction and giving you the trust levels and the scores that helps you understand whether you should or should not provide, give friction to the end users. So because of all these, we're rebranding reCAPTCHA as Google Cloud Fraud Defense. It is really a major evolution, but it is still powered by 20 years of heritage here of fighting fraud and abuse. From the initial, I don't know how many of you remember the squiggly letters that you have to kind of type in to kind of bypass or to get through the CAPTCHA, to the visual challenges that you see, you can click on the fire hydrants and all that stuff, to eventually, right, the invisible scores that we give. Today, when you see those fire hydrants and check boxes that you see on the websites, that represents less than 5% of what users actually see. Large majority of the interactions are completely invisible to the consumer users. That's a super important detail because most people think about reCAPTCHA when they think about visual challenges, but that's not the case anymore. 95%, more than 95% of the interactions are completely invisible. You as a customer, as an enterprise customer of ours, right, can make a decision whether you want to provide that friction or introduce that friction to the end user or not, right? And then finally, recently in the last few years, we introduced the full suite of protections with account defense, account takeover, transaction defense for protecting payments, SMS defense for protecting SMS toll fraud. We have large customers outside of the US that's seeing millions and millions of loss in terms of SMS toll fraud, right? And now we're able to kind of protect those type of customers. And today, we're, again, as I mentioned, Google Cloud Fraud Defense is our next evolution of reCAPTCHA. Really, and what we're going to be talking about a little bit later with Chris is how we're starting to protect the agentic economy. How do we deliver what we call the safe agentic web, right? Agentic measurements, how do we kind of provide a policy so that you can control that user experience? So again, Google Cloud Fraud Defense, still powered by 20 years of heritage that we have and the intelligence that we have. This is over the past 20 years, this is what we have built up in terms of a comprehensive fraud and abuse prevention platform. On your left, what you're seeing is that all the different endpoints that we can support: web, mobile, IoT, and now agents, right? What you see as a customer, one of our customers using reCAPTCHA, is the visibility and control layer that you see on top, the insights that you see, the dashboards that you see, and also today you'll see some of the new capabilities around our policy engine, policy-based control. This is really kind of the important kind of granularity that we want to be able to provide you as a customer to control. In the middle here, you see all of the detection capabilities that we have, right? We have specialized detection capabilities for all types of attacks, from SMS to account takeover to the original bot stuff that will continue to improve. And now, again, moving into the agent side of things. All of that is powered by the risk engines and the threat intels that we have from not just reCAPTCHA, not just the 14 million sites that we get from reCAPTCHA, but also all of Google, right? All of the capabilities that Google has and the threat intelligence that we get from Google. So again, those 3 red boxes or check marks that you see there are some of the newer capabilities that we have, and we'll go through some of the demo there. Okay, so quickly here, as I've already mentioned, customer lands on a website. They can be browsing your website. They go and register with your website. They log into your website. They make a transaction and do a payment on your website. These are all the things that you want to protect as a customer. You want to protect the overall journey. And the bottom here, what you see is all the different capabilities that we have to help you protect all those, right? Bot defense, account defense, password defense, SMS defense, and transaction defense. Every part of the journey, we have solutions for you. And this is why it's important for you to consider, all of the different attack vectors that you see on your website. Consider all the different solutions and the capabilities that we provide so that you can protect everything that you have on your website. Okay. We are really the only solution that provides that unified picture in terms of fraud defense. Quickly, to recap, from a fraud defense perspective, 1, we have our planet-scale intelligence. This combines the 14 million websites, the data that we collect, and the intelligence that we collect from all the websites and all the customers that we protect. We leverage that. We leverage all the threat intelligence coming from Google. Google has many billion plus user services, and these are all things that we can potentially leverage as well, right? So unprecedented scale, something that we're pretty proud of. 2, you saw that we have a complete end-to-end solution here that gives you a broad coverage of all the different attack vectors. And 3, we're building this to support the overall agentic web. Our key goal here is to be the trust platform for the agentic web, delivering that safe agentic web that you need as we go into the agentic era. Next, what I'm going to have is Chris to come up and go through some of the key demos and capabilities that we're going to be launching around this particular area. Chris?
All right, next slide. This is not the one I'm looking for. Framework for agentic trust. Well, first off, I'm Chris Hamilton. I'm Eng lead for reCAPTCHA, or now Google Cloud Fraud Defense, which is going to be a hard thing to remember to say. 20 years of history is pretty hard to let go of. We're not completely walking away from the reCAPTCHA brand. It's basically a sub-brand of Google Cloud Fraud Defense. You'll still see that branding for the visual challenges and things like that. Okay. So a framework for agentic trust, obviously there's like this key things you need. One, first off, we've heard this repeatedly across, I don't know how many sessions, across the keynote, across everywhere. Identity is key. Like, we need to be able to identify agents and label agentic activities. There are multiple standards out there. You'll have heard mostly the rest of Cloud Next really focusing on kind of enterprise use cases where you're having an agent inside of your corporate boundary, your enterprise boundary, doing things, automating tasks on behalf of your employees, things like that. That's where we're talking about SPIFFE, WMSI, these type of standards. We're going to be taking a different approach here, and we're mostly talking about agents that other people are operating to automate largely consumer tasks, interacting with consumer-facing websites. And this is kind of where agents are going to be for the long tail for a while. There's eventually going to be new standards and things that come out here. And on that side of the house, it's WebBot Auth would be the standard that's kind of got the most traction here, introduced by Cloudflare. And we've been working with them and other vendors on the standards process. Behavior is key, so actually being able to observe these agents at large in the wild across different sites. Once they're identified, we can kind of see, are they doing egregious things? Are they largely accomplishing good things? We can build this kind of reputation. And from the first time you see them on your site, we've already seen them somewhere else most likely, and we're able to kind of share that intelligence with you. Mitigation, so when they do go off the rails and they're doing something that you don't want them to do, we need to be able to actually have meaningful checks and bounds for agents, okay? Visual challenges that you guys know, the whole checkbox or fire hydrants or bicycles, that's long since been broken, like 2018, we've considered that broken. It's there as a very small sophistication hump and a small kind of financial cost to attackers, but modern LLMs and AI have really kind of eradicated that. It's very, very simple to now do this. Like, any kind of leading frontier model will be able to do all of that, no problem. So we have new kind of AI-resistant challenges that we've built, and then enablement, and that's more on the making sure you're removing friction for real users rather than getting in their way. Okay, so these new capabilities, Jian's already mentioned them: policy engine, AI-resistant challenges, agentic activity measurement. Okay, policy engine is about giving you the flexibility, the customizability to decide exactly where you want to reduce friction, where you don't. AI-resistant challenges is this kind of linchpin to be able to present a roadblock to an agent that it can't meaningfully automate its way around, and in some sense forces a human in the loop, or for malicious kind of scaled agentic attacks, just stops them cold. And then agentic activity measurement is kind of on the back end, right? When you go back to our cloud console, gives you those insights into what the agents are doing on your site, where you're seeing them, what types of activities. Okay. All right, so we're going to go through our demo. And here I'm going to have to do a little bit of a pausing and back and forth. First off, I kind of wanted to jump on my virtual soapbox and talk a little bit about agent identity, okay? Like I mentioned, it's not very contentious on the enterprise side of the house, where we're talking about agents that you're running inside of your corporate boundary. Like, there's clear consensus that you need identity, okay? On the web, it's a little mixed, all right? So we have some standards that have been proposed, but they're not seeing universal adoption. And our stance here is we're going out of our way to generate labeled traffic by actually purchasing these platforms, generating agentic traffic on the web using computer using agents, building models to detect those. And if you are an agent that's coming in and you're not participating in well-intentioned way with identity, then we're going to run you through our classic legacy risk model, which drastically penalizes automation, because for the history of the web, automation has largely been bad. Okay, so you go through our classic risk model, you're going to get really bad scores. We're going to be showing you these agentic resistant challenges. On the flip side, for the folks that are participating in this ecosystem and that are actually signing their requests with cryptographically secure agent identities, we're going to run them through a separate, we're going to segment that traffic and run it through like an agentic specific risk model. And that will not punish you just for being automation, right? We're largely going to be focusing on the outcomes and the means of what you're doing rather than the fact that you are automation. and they're going to get preferential treatment. So that's kind of the incentive. That's the deal we're making with the web and kind of agent platforms at large. And we're working across agent platforms. We're working across other security vendors and the standards processes to kind of help push along those standards and kind of drive adoption. All right, so we're going to go through kind of an end-to-end demo, kind of an agentic journey, a little bit of a toy journey here, e-commerce flow. Let's get started. So we're going to be using Gemini in Chrome browser to automate purchasing a phone for me. Okay. Now, for the purposes of this demo, we're using an in-browser agent because you get to see the flow of what it's doing and you can really visualize what it's doing. But this may as well be an agent running in a VM somewhere. It could be driving a headless browser. It could be all the different formats that you can imagine. But the main thing is its gateway to the world is still through the traditional web, which we're going to still see a lot of. Okay, we're eventually going to see these things move to these other standards like web MCP, or services are going to start exposing actual MCP endpoints, and we're going to meet them there as well. We're not talking about this here. We're talking about where things are right now, because the vast majority of kind of the public web has not adopted those standards yet, and agents that are running in browsers aren't ready to use them either. Okay. So here we're seeing the agent automating the sign-in process into this price value fake e-commerce, making a search for a phone, adding it to cart, okay? And then now we're going to go to the cart and we're going to initiate the checkout flow. It's going to be putting all of its payment details. We'll let kind of run through. We'll have an awkward 10 seconds of silence. All right. Now, I'm going to pause here. All right. So what you've seen is Gemini is actually stopping and going, hey, we're about to make a purchase. Maybe the human wants to be in the loop here. Okay, this is a responsible AI agent, Gemini in the browser. They're trying to have some serious guardrails here. But maybe not all AI agents are going to be the same, the open clause that are out there, right? You might be a little bit horrified by the fact that this virtual user has just pasted their credentials and their payment information into an agent and just said, hey, go to town. But that's actually happening, right? There are people just running OpenClaw, giving it all the things, OpenClaw reaching into the browser cookie jar, grabbing credentials itself. Like all the things you can imagine are happening. So in this case, the agent was actually kind of being responsible and bringing the human back into the loop, but that might not be the case. So we're going to pass control back to the agent and say, yes, I really want you to make that purchase. Okay, and we'll pause here again. All right, and what you're seeing here is that new challenge that we're talking about, okay? This is our QR code scanning challenge. We talked about this last year. We had a demo video of it last year. This is actually shipping now. You can all pull out your phones, put on your camera mode, scan this, and go through the user experience if you want. This is live and working. You don't know it, but it's already on your Android phone. On iOS phones, it's using app clips, so there's nothing for you to install. You're just going to have to click a button and go through. And what we're doing here is twofold. One, we're moving the flow away from the web, okay, where the agent is. The agent is bound to a desktop class device or a VM somewhere. It doesn't actually have access to a phone. The human that is doing this flow presumably has that phone. And that makes it a lot harder to automate, okay? Not impossible. We do have device farms out there, click farms that operate like, racks of phones and automation. So you'll be able to bridge that gap as an attacker if you want to operate a device farm. But what we actually do by going back to the device is we have access to a trusted platform module, a secure enclave that survives kind of device resets, where we can build a secure rate limiting primitive. And this is just an anonymous counter, okay? And if you do this too often with the same phone, you're just going to burn that phone. That phone will no longer be able to pass these QR code challenges again for a certain amount of time until that counter resets. So that is kind of introducing, one, a large complexity burden, and two, a financial cost, right? So you can imagine the cheapest phones that you can get out there in the $20 to $50 range that are really, really bare bones. And then if you're able to do, we have a custom configurable rate limit here, 5, 10, 50 challenges, maybe it's going to cost $1, $5, $10 per challenge, and that's a serious financial impediment, okay? The other thing we can do here is we're getting signals from two vectors now. We have the web flow and we have the mobile flow. And you can do a lot of consistency checks here, like are they physically proximate? Are they on the same network? Are they coming from the same geo? Whatever else. Do they have the same credentials on the devices, the same user accounts, these kind of things. So there's a lot of kind of defense in depth that you get out of that as well. I don't know if everybody got a chance to try that. Did it actually work? Hands up. Yeah? Great. All right. Nice to see. Let's move on. So the user pulls out their phone, they go through the challenge, and the order process is able to complete. So that was the site operator being able to put checks and bounds on the agent. They don't want to prevent the user from being able to do a purchase, but maybe they want to force a human in the loop to make sure the agent isn't doing something surprising for their user, okay? It's about protecting their users. Now, whoa, that was me clicking the wrong slide. How do I go back? The red arrow for back. Let's go back into here and find where we were. All right. Great. So now we're going to change personas, and we're going to go back to basically kind of the fraud analyst or the operator of the website, and we're going into the cloud console to look at the features from the other side of the house. Okay, so here we are in our account tab, and this is looking at the account defense feature, the intelligence that you get from that. And that's kind of our premier feature, which most kind of modern web apps are going to have some notion of a user identity. And if you're using reCAPTCHA to its fullest extent, you'll have integrated with account defense. And we can go in and see, like, okay, what's the kind of intelligence we're getting from a login interaction? So we're going to scroll down, and we can actually go dive deep into some logs here. We can show you the kind of things that you're getting in the API response. So we'll open up one of these logs. First, we're looking at the account defender assessment here. And we're going to go, high risk. So this actually is identifying this particular interaction as a likely ATO. We can go into the detailed reasons. We can open that up. Lots of nesting here. In this case, geolocation mismatch or discrepancy, like, oh, this is an unlikely geo for the user. It doesn't match their existing profile. Associated with a fraud cluster, so like known IP address or something that was, using clustering algorithm, we've decided a lot of fraud is happening from there. They also happen to provide us a phone number with that assessment, and we're going, that's an invalid phone number. Like, some things don't make sense here. This looks like an ATO. It's not the user that you think it is. Oh, and we had given them a challenge. They passed the challenge. It's probably a real human, not automation, but it's not the human you think it is. So that's one example. Now we're going to go over kind of to our overview tab, and we're going to look at some new configurability options. Okay, we mentioned this thing, policy engine. We kind of have a sliding scale of options here. If you look at the top, we have this like easy, balanced, hard. That's classic reCAPTCHA, the V2 challenge logic. And what you're doing is kind of just giving us an indication of how much user friction do you have, how important is the action you're protecting, and we're just kind of automating this on the back end. We're deciding when to show the challenge for you. Now, as we've migrated to like an enterprise-grade product, we've definitely got a lot of customer feedback. It's like, that's too simplistic. I really want to be able to fine-grain configure how this works. And in that case, we have something we call policy-based challenges. And this is letting you set a slider. You're the one who decides what's the risk threshold that I'm willing to tolerate for when I want to show a challenge, when I want to block out, right, or when I want to let the user through. And then we'll let this play forward. And you can see as we go down, you can actually specialize this for different actions on your site. You can have a global setting, or you can go down and say, like, on login, this is a more sensitive site. I want to have a tighter threshold. You can have a checkout action, et cetera. Now, we're clicking on the policy tab. And this is something else that's new. And this is for when policy-based challenges are not quite enough, okay? And this is basically allowing you to build business logic, arbitrary logic, using all of the fields that are addressable in the assessment or API response to build kind of arbitrary if-then-else statements that decide when you want to be presenting the user with a challenge, when you want to be letting them through, when you want to be blocking them. Okay, and IP address, ASN, user agent score, whether it's automation or not, is it an agent, which agent is it, the identity, and more things coming up here. This is not a fully fledged example. Now, what you're seeing in the UX is kind of our interactive rules builder, and you'll see as we build a rule, you're seeing that this expression that's being built, this is kind of interactive expression builder, but behind the scenes, this is actually just common expression language. This is Cell. A lot of other products at Google use this. And you can write this somewhere else. You can test these things. You can deploy them via API, Terraform, or whatever it may be. Or you can go ahead and kind of WYSIWYG do it in the editor. And this gives you kind of full configurability for customizing when those challenges are being displayed. Now we're going to go back to the reCAPTCHA overview tab, and we're going to look at kind of the dashboarding. And this is like our bird's eye view of how the product is, performing on your website, what's going on. On the left here, we have this fraud report. We kind of drill into that. Now this is a weekly kind of AI-generated insights. There's a report about activity on your site, changes in patterns, particular attacks, whatever there might be. Good entry point for your analyst to kind of kickstart their day. We have a global report, trends across the vertical, the industry you're in. Okay, and go back to, and let's scroll down. And then here we have baby steps towards, agentic insights. This is telling you, hey, what agents are we seeing on your website? Where are they? What volumes? What actions are they taking? Now, there's obviously much more detail available in our logs, and kind of rich insights are only a query away, an SQL query away. And you'll be seeing these surfaces mature and evolve a lot in the near future. All the things that I showed you there, the QR challenges, recently just launched. You'll actually start seeing them on the web now. You may or may not have seen one. The policy-based challenges, private preview, I believe. We're going public very soon. And the policy engine will be coming within a month. Okay, so these things are either already there or very soon there, but kind of all parts of the journey for kind of dealing with agents on the web. All right, next. This time I meant to slide forward, and we're going to invite Ramesh from Best Buy to talk about how they're leveraging Google Cloud Fraud Defense and reCAPTCHA. Yes, thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Ramesh Babu. I'm from Best Buy. I'm coming from the land of 10,000 lakes, Minnesota. I worked at Best Buy for almost 20 years. And all these 20 years, I have dealt with bots. Either bots love me so much, or I love bots so much. I don't know which one it is, but I've been dealing with them. In my experience, what I have seen in the last 20 years is dramatically changing in the last 1 year. Right? Like that's what I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes or so. I don't know how much time I have left. We'll see. Okay. So what I've seen with bots, right? Like so, before agents became mainstream, a lot of the bots were very localized. What I mean by that, right? Like, so we would see bots, for example, on our gift card lookup page. Those bots would look very different, right? Like they're trying to harvest gift cards and try to see if the gift cards are valid or not. The type of attacks that they do, the type of behaviors that we see, the type of velocity at which we see that is very different than a bot that is trying to attack us on a login page, as an example, right? Like the velocity is very different there. And then it was almost like a cat and mouse game, right? Like so you would try to block certain things and they would show up somewhere else. You would try to block certain IPs, they will come from different IPs. You try to block a CIDR block, they come from all over the world, right? So that's used to be the way we deal with bots. But last 1 year, what we are seeing is these bots are very, very coordinated now. It's no longer siloed, it's very coordinated, and we see them throughout the journey, all the way from product discovery to all the way to checkout, and even sometimes post-checkout, right? So they are becoming very, very intelligent, and what's more scary is they are mimicking human behavior very much, right? Like, so it's important that our bot defenses can be elevated to catch these advancements. So why this is important, right? Like, so it has a huge impact on our customer experience. Any Pokemon fans out there? So we do sell a lot of Pokemon cards, and they are of high demand but low inventory, right? Like, so whenever we drop a Pokemon card, these bots come and try to take them. So they block our inventory reservation calls, and hence the inventory can be blocked from real customers, right? So it is a real problem eroding our customers' trust. Also important, there is an industry study that says almost 30 to 35% of the internet traffic is bots. Think of that number, what it does to your data, right? Like, so things like your operational metrics like conversion rate, your new user acquisition, all of these things have this bot numbers in them, and it's very impossible for you to understand which one is actually yielding value, and which one is not, right? Like, so it's important from a data perspective that these bots needs to be cleaned up. Think about your A/B tests that you're doing, right? Like all the incrementality measurements that you're doing. These bots wreak havoc on those assessments. And all the models that we train, whether it is for personalization, recommendations, search, all of them are training on this bot behavior. And we want to be able to remove the noise from this model training. So why can't we solve this all alone, right? So the biggest problem that we have as Best Buy is the visibility, right? We can do a lot of things with the data that we know, our customers, our orders, our transactions, our network, and whatnot. But these bots, like Chris said, they're coming from all over the world. All the open class out there, they're coming from all over the world. And we just can't see all of that, and there's a huge visibility gap that we have. And that's exactly where reCAPTCHA comes and helps us. With being 20 years in the industry, with all the help of all of us, clicking on all the traffic lights and everything, all the intelligence that they have gained over time, they have a broad visibility into all the things that are happening all over the internet. And that's exactly what we need, the intelligence that they have gathered from the millions of websites, billions of users, and everything. So with their intelligence, you start to see patterns that are really global patterns and not local patterns. Also, before reCAPTCHA, our approach was very, very binary approach. Right? What I mean by a binary approach, either we would be too tight, like take the gift card example that I was telling, right? Like there could be a season where real customers are using a lot of gift cards and trying to redeem the gift cards post-Christmas. Those times, we want to let more customers in, right? So we loosen up the rules that we have or the models that we have, and then that gives an opportunity for the bots to come in. On the other hand, if I go tighten the screws a little bit, you are impacting the customer experience. So this binary approach is not very flexible in this agent world. And what reCAPTCHA gave us is a risk-based approach, right? Like, so what we do is we put reCAPTCHA on our site and app, and then we try to assess the score, risk score, at every part of the journey. So using that, we are then able to make an intelligent decision. And as the customer progresses in their journey, we are able to glean more and more intelligence and make an intelligent decision on the back end. Remember, this is not, we don't use the thing that impacts customer experience. This is invisible behind the scenes, so customer experience is never impacted. So some numbers, last holiday during Power Week, we had over 1 billion assessments done. And then we were able to catch 12 to 15% more bots than we have ever caught. And then all of that in a very, very fraction of time. Right? Think of the number of signals that reCAPTCHA has to do and assess and provide us the risk score back. All of this happened in a fraction of milliseconds for us. So it was huge for us from Power Week perspective as well. So to wrap up, bots are more prepared than ever, right? Like, so it's evolving consistently, constantly. So this is not about stopping bots anymore. It is about protecting your entire journey. So as the world moves towards more automation and agents, your bot defenses and fraud defenses should also move towards that direction. So that's all I have. We'll take some questions now.
Yeah, that was a great example of a customer who's leveraging reCAPTCHA, or now known as fraud defense. As you can see, we're still kind of learning how to say that name ourselves as well. So, but again, great example. Thank you, Ramesh. That's been great.